Hi, my name's Phil and welcome to LabourVision, where we look at an aspect of Labour's policies for change. And we've got a hot one this week, the tax arrangements of private schools. Labour had previously stated that it intended to make private schools pay VAT on school fees by removing their charitable status. Now they've changed that policy to simply applying VAT to school fees. So this creates a couple of questions. One, why the change of policy? And two, does it actually make any difference? So let's look at why the policy changed first of all. Now, easy to imagine that if Labour changes a policy, it is as the result of political pressure and a change of attitude amongst their target voters. This would make strategic sense. However, that can't be the case here for multiple reasons. First of all, there's like 7% of people go to private school, and those who do are not really part of Labour's target voter group. Labour are known to be heavily targeting certain types of swing voters, most famously middle-aged men who have reasonable incomes but not much academic education. These obviously haven't been to private school and they generally don't privately educate their own kids. The second type of target voter is reputed to be single mothers around about 40 years of age. Again, some will privately educate their kids, of course, not that many. And it's not really the ones Labour are targeting. They're sort of targeting the single mothers in particular who are struggling being single mothers because of not enough help from the state, really. So not really those who've got a spare 30 grand lying around to spend on school fees for a couple of kids. And the other thing is that there has been robust criticism of the policy in the mainstream media. In fact, it's been quite paranoid. And this is because there's a very high rate of newspaper columnists who went to private school themselves and who privately educate their own kids. But we know that this pressure hasn't caused the policy change because, if anything, they've actually ramped up their attacks since Labour changed this policy. The main reason being cited is that it's actually really difficult to abolish the charitable status of schools. Now, if this sounds a bit weird, I'm with you. It does, doesn't it? It sounds a bit weird, but it is a notion backed up by tax lawyer Dan Needle. He's the guy who very famously got under the skin of Nadim Zahawi last summer when he was reporting on his little tax scandal. Now, some of you may have read a piece by Dan Needle about the extra money that could be raised by removing charitable status above and beyond that would be raised by simply applying VAT to fees, which is the new policy anyway. He has since said that he's removed that post because it contained serious errors. His view now is that the difference would only amount to £100 million. So it would appear that the major tax raiser is coming from applying VAT to school fees, which is what Labour are still doing. Which also answers the question as to what difference it makes. According to Needle's revised calculations, the difference is just like maybe a bit over £100 million. And it's not even like Labour are definitely abandoning even this relatively small amount. Needle makes the point that abolishing charitable status is actually hard, but turning off the tax benefits it gives is easy. In other words, Labour have probably decided not to abolish their charitable status because they've discovered that it's actually going to be quite difficult, occupy a lot of time and ministerial effort. You know, they're forming a government after maybe 14 years of Tory ruin, and they need to get a lot of things done very efficiently. So you suddenly tell them, oh, there's this thing you want to do. Yeah, that's going to take you quite a long time. But you could get some of the benefits of it by doing something else that's actually really easy. It's like, well, okay, let's do that. So if Labour have now been told they'd have to put in a lot of time and effort to removing charitable status, meaning other things don't get done, but they could just apply VAT to school fees really easily, then that may explain the change of policy. Also doesn't stop them removing some of the other benefits of charitable status later on either, if it's easy. And what are some of those benefits? Well, not paying tax on investment returns. Needle suggests this is like, doesn't amount to very much money at all. Gift aid, he doesn't have a figure for this, but when he looked at the total gift aid across all charities, he supposed that, you know, from private schools, it must be a really small amount. And he reckons that getting away with, say, business rates, that's another benefit. Again, it's not going to be as much as is generally reported either. Now, you may say that, okay, even if it only adds up to, say, a bit over £100 million, it's still better in the Treasury than, in the private schools, isn't it? It's like, well, you'll get no argument from me on that one. But I think the point is that all of these changes take time and resources, and Labour will be focusing those resources on getting the best returns quickly. The best return is, without any shadow of doubt, applying VAT to school fees, because that will yield a lot of money. And that money is going to be used to increase the funding for state schools. Removing the other features of charitable status yields way less. Doesn't stop the government disapplying them bit by bit once they've picked the low-hanging fruit later on. I would also advise people to consider why the mainstream media are attacking Labour's new policy even more aggressively than the old one. Because it sounds weird, doesn't it? Their policy was to remove charitable status, to which the mainstream media went, oh, we don't like this idea. Now they're saying, okay, we're not going to remove charitable status, we're just going to apply VAT on school fees, and they've gone absolutely insane. And the reason may well be that they realised it would be difficult to remove charitable status, and so although they argued against it, they weren't really that bothered because they thought Labour would probably leave it in the in-tray due to the difficulty and it would probably never get done. But because this new policy is simple to do and they can do it quickly, they feel that the danger to their precious tax breaks is now more real. But there we are. That's what I found on the policy change. The policy of removing charitable status was always presented as a way to apply VAT to school fees, which is still happening. I still think it's obscene that a private school can be considered a charity. But if the legislative process of removing it is difficult, but removing the benefits is easy, well, I'm happy to be pragmatic about it. But there we are. I hope that explains some of the things. If you've got thoughts of your own, please post them in the comments below. If you found the video interesting, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, I'll see you later.